Welcome, everyone, to a Tuesday morning episode of the Call Sheet Daily Podcast here at the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, Kevin Smith. Boy, we just wrapped up a phenomenal opening week of the NFL football season. And on today's show, we're going to discuss how week one reminded us that football is America's best and favorite sport. I think for many people in this country, the opening of the football season is kind of like a holiday. And unfortunately, it also coincides with a lot of people going back to work, the end of summer, having to fall back into a routine. And that's not exciting stuff for many people. But man, when you get to the weekend and football arrives, it is exciting in a way that no other sport can match. Football is America's best and favorite sport. And we were reminded of that with the kickoff of the 2025 NFL season. I don't remember a week one, and that may be because the older I get, I don't remember a lot of things. But I don't remember a week one that was that exciting and intriguing in a long, long time. So let's talk about it. Why or in what ways, I should say, did week one remind us about the greatness of the sport of football? Why football is such a passion that Americans hold? And I think, it begins with the game itself, the roots of the game. What is it about football that is inherently appealing to Americans? I mean, you could start with a simple notion. Anyone who's ever played at any level, I mean, maybe you played third grade peewee football, and that was kind of the end of your career. And who knows, man, maybe you played all the way up into the NFL. Anyone who's ever played the game understands one fundamental truth about it, and that is the following. Football's hard. It's really hard. It's physically demanding. It's uncomfortable at times. It takes a certain type of, I don't know, I'm not even sure what the word is. It's not character, but there's something about you inherently that the sport will appeal to you. It doesn't appeal to everyone. A lot of people like to run around and throw the ball and play touch at the ballpark and things like that. But when the pads go on and you actually start hitting one another, it just separates those who love the sport, who gravitate towards the sport, and those who decide, maybe I'll try something else. And that's not a judgment. No, there's no judgment there. It's just the truth. But I think for those who it appeals to and those who shy away, there's still this element, the physicality of the game, the mentality it takes to play it, the notion that football players are modern day gladiators. I think all of that still resonates with a lot of people. And I think the fact that there's no guarantee of success, I mean, that is true in all sports. But in football, the notion of winning or losing, because you just get this one game a week, and how that result can impact for players and fans alike the rest of your week. That when your team wins a football game on a Friday night or a Saturday or a Sunday, the carryover that has throughout other aspects of your life for the next several days is unlike any other sport. The other sports, they just play too many games. There's 82 NBA games and then 20 some playoff games. To win the championship, you play over 100 games. In baseball, there's 162 games and then the playoffs. To win the World Series, you're going to play around 180 or so games. At what point does that just become oversaturation? At what point does it all just blend one into the next? Your favorite baseball team wins a game on Tuesday, well, they're right back at it on Wednesday. Maybe they lose on Wednesday. The carryover of that Tuesday win is very small. But if your favorite football team wins on Sunday, you're still walking tall and talking trash on Wednesday. You can walk into your building, whatever your building might be, your office building at work, your school, your chat room, whatever it might be, with your chest up and, your head held high and you're feeling you're feeling yourself, right? Because your team won on Sunday and you're still feeling that on Wednesday. And then by the time you're not feeling it anymore, you're excited about the next one. Let's go. And that is unique to football. So the game itself, the nature of the game, the fact that its physical demands only allow us to play it once a week makes it special in America. As for the NFL, I think the league has done a really good job of marketing itself in a way that both produces, or I should say promotes the sport, but also the individuals. The stories have become a central theme of the NFL season. You take some of the headlines from this past weekend. Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, quarterbacks of the Ravens and Bills, had an unbelievable shootout on Sunday Night Football. The Bills come back from 15 points down with 5 minutes to play to beat the Ravens 41-40. And the camera is so focused as both Baltimore is building their lead and then Buffalo is eroding it on these two quarterbacks, both of whom have been MVPs, both of whom on Sunday night at times played absolutely lights out, put their teams on their backs, and both of whom are yet to make it to the Super Bowl, both of whom can't get over this postseason hurdle. For Josh Allen, that hurdle has taken the form of the Kansas City Chiefs, who have knocked the Bills out of the playoffs in 4 out of the last 6 years. For Lamar Jackson, that hurdle is what? Maybe it's Lamar Jackson. But whatever it is, Lamar Jackson has not been able to play his best football in the biggest games. And as that game slipped away from the Ravens on Sunday night, there was just this sense about Lamar Jackson. Hey, is he going to be able to get it done in big games on the biggest stages? These guys are superstars. They're worth literally hundreds of millions of dollars. But their quest for a championship will ultimately define their legacies, and that is incredibly compelling. That's a really interesting story to follow. I mentioned the Chiefs. Obviously, the league has put them front and center of just about anything that the NFL wants to be involved with. They've got a likable head coach in Andy Reid, who's a great redemption story after he kind of got run out of Philly. He lands in Kansas City and builds this mini dynasty. They've got a quarterback in Patrick Mahomes who's going to go to the Hall of Fame and who has, at least this far into his career, the type of exciting play on the field mixed with very American image off the field. He's a success story. He doesn't get into trouble. He sells well, he can sell Domino's pizzas or State Farm insurance or whatever he's out there selling. And then, of course, oh my goodness, right? The Kelce brothers, who are great for marketing themselves because they have big personalities and they're tremendous football players, Travis and Taylor Swift. The NFL could not have possibly made that up and done any better for themselves. There is no way that they could have imagined that one of their most high-profile star players would marry the biggest pop star on the planet and the impact that that would have on the game. No Hollywood producer could have written a script better for the NFL than Travis Kelce getting together with Taylor Swift. You've got other stories. You got stories on the other end of the spectrum. Traditionally downtrodden franchises like the Lions and the Browns trying to claw their way to some success. Detroit turning their season or their franchise around a couple of years ago. a couple of great seasons back to back, but now they lose some coaches and coordinators. Are they going to slide back into being what the Detroit Lions have been for so long, or are they going to be able to continue this redemption story? And the Browns, just a franchise that just continues to seemingly have one stroke of bad luck after another. They lose in heartbreaking fashion in week 1 when their kicker misses an extra point and then a short field goal that probably would have given them a victory. It just feels like certain franchises are trying so hard to get this monkey, whatever that monkey might be, off their backs. And when they do, much like the Chicago Cubs in baseball or the Boston Red Sox when they finally ended their curse, I mean, it will be this release for a franchise of decades upon decades of pent-up frustration. That's exciting. How do you not, at some point, root for a franchise to rid themselves of those ghosts? You got redemption stories that are compelling. Aaron Rodgers and Justin Fields going up against the teams that essentially allowed them to walk out of their buildings a year ago. Aaron Rodgers at 41 years old trying to write one final glorious chapter to his future Hall of Fame career. A guy like Daniel Jones, another guy given up by previous franchises, coming back in week 1 to lead the Colts to a huge win over Miami and looking pretty good in doing so. It's worth rooting for redemption. Americans love a good redemption story. I mean, one thing you can do in America is we build you up to tear you down, but we love it when people rise again. We love it when that fallen hero or that individual who rose to the top and then was humbled is able to put it back together and rise again. It's a very American story. There aren't a lot of places in the world historically where you've been able to do that. Redemption has not been a thing in world history, but it is in the sport of football. And week 1 reminded us of that. But more than anything, it's the drama of the games. And week 1 was loaded with them. I mean, the Philly-Dallas game, it started with the worst sort of drama. Before a single offensive play had been run, Jalen Carter gets ejected for spitting on Dak Prescott. Before a single offensive play in the entire league was run, that happens. And now the league, that's a black eye on the league, but it certainly draws attention. Not the attention that they want, but it's still attention. And then that Philly-Dallas game went on to be a really good football game that got delayed by lightning, weirdly. The next night, Kansas City and the Chargers played a tremendous game down in Brazil. The crowd was hopping. The game was excellent. The stars shone. Justin Herbert played lights out. On Sunday, the Jets and the Steelers treated those who watched to a wildly entertaining game, 34-32. Nobody saw that coming between those two teams. The Tampa Bay-Atlanta game, the Cleveland-Cincinnati game, those came right down to the very end and featured kickers missing makeable kicks that would have won games for their teams. We mentioned Buffalo-Baltimore. That game was Game of the Year candidate right out of the gate, 41-40. And then on Monday Night Football, the Chicago Bears, another, not historically, but at least in this century, traditionally downtrodden team that just can't seem to get it right at the quarterback position, looked as though they were going to run away from the division rival Minnesota Vikings. Caleb Williams, through 3 quarters, greatly outplayed his young counterpart, J.J. McCarthy. And it looked like, hey man, Ben Johnson, the new head coach of the Bears, they're going to turn the corner with this guy. And then, suddenly, J.J. McCarthy came to life, led the Vikings to 3 fourth-quarter touchdowns, storming back from a 17-6 deficit to lead Minnesota to a 27-24 win. J.J. McCarthy, down the stretch, looked like everything Vikings fans hope he's going to be. My friend David Stefano of the First and Skol network here at Fans First has been talking up J.J. McCarthy now for months. And every time I've said to him, boy, they're putting all their eggs in the J.J. McCarthy basket. I mean, Dave's basically said to me, it's a good basket. It's a worthy basket. And it sure looked that way. When that game turned in the fourth quarter, J.J. McCarthy looked like the guy who was sure that his team was going to win. And Caleb Williams and the Bears looked like the team that was pretty certain they were going to lose. And that is how it's been historically for that Chicago team, at least this century. And that type of drama hooks you in. I was ready to go to bed. I was getting tired. It was 11 o'clock. The game was, it was an okay game. I was compelled by watching McCarthy and the Ben Johnson offense. I wanted to see what was going on. But it's 17-6 near the end of the third quarter, and I was thinking, yeah, maybe I'll go to bed. But then McCarthy put a drive together, and suddenly, man, the game took on a totally different tone. The switch got flipped. That's something that is thrilling for fans. And lastly, and here's another thing the NFL has done a wonderful job of, for good or for bad, you can bet on all of this. Sports betting is now legal in most states. You can bet on all of it. You can bet on stuff in game. You can bet on things as they unfold. You could bet on, in the fourth quarter, as that game turned, whether or not Minnesota was going to win the football game. Maybe you hadn't laid that money in the beginning of the game. I mean, it used to be, well, before the game starts, all bets are in. No way. You have in-game betting now. Is that good for the game? I don't know, but it is really attracting people to it. The amount of money the NFL is generating for both itself and for all these individual sports books through increased gambling, legalized gambling, is mind-boggling. It has driven interest to an all-time high. The ratings are up. The kickoff game between Dallas and Philadelphia drew more eyeballs for a regular season game than any in the last 10 years. The quality of play is excellent. The stories are compelling. The drama is right out of a Hollywood script. The NFL in week 1 reminded us, football, it's the best sport in America. It's the most popular sport in America. And there are reasons for that. All right, I can't wait for week 2. Before then, though, our Whiteboard Wednesday show. Thursday, I usually do the portal. We're going to talk a little college football, but Thursday, September 11th. And, I want to make sure that we talk a little bit about that, what that means to people, what that means to the country. That's an event. As somebody who was a history teacher for over 30 years, I really believe it's important to recognize and remember some of these moments and to try to put them in context. What did they mean at some point in history, and what do they mean now? And so we'll talk about that on Thursday, and then Friday is my show with Pez, the Hot Route, and I'm looking forward to catching up with him because we missed each other this past week. So continue to listen in, everybody, and if you get a chance, like us on Spotify, subscribe to our YouTube channel. That always helps with our ratings, however all that stuff works. All right, until tomorrow, I hope everybody has a great day. Take care.